Let me ask you a question, and I want you to be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Do you believe the world is a fair place? Do you believe that people, for the most part, mean what they say? Do you still operate under the assumption that if you are honest, work hard, and act with good intentions, you will inevitably be rewarded? Most of us do. We are born into a grand and beautifully constructed theater, and from our first breath, we are handed a script. It is the script of innocence. Its lines are simple and reassuring. It teaches us that fairness is the natural order of things, that vulnerability is a strength, that truth will always prevail. Our parents, our teachers, our society, they are the directors of this play, and they drill these lines into us until they become our own inner voice. This theater serves a purpose. It creates a predictable, manageable world. A world where people follow the rules, trust the system, and believe in the inherent goodness of the narrative. It is a world built on a fragile, unspoken agreement. We all pretend to be the characters we are written to be, and in return we get the comfort of a story that makes sense. We play the part of the loyal friend, the honest worker, the good person. But you have felt it, haven't you? That quiet, unsettling dissonance. That feeling in the pit of your stomach when the script doesn't match the reality on stage. You see the dishonest colleague, the one who masters the art of appearances, get the promotion over the one who did the actual work. You see the person who loudly proclaims their virtue be the first to abandon their principles when it becomes inconvenient. You see that in the real game of power, the rules you were taught seem to apply to everyone but those who are actually winning. You have been playing your part faithfully in a play, only to realize that some people in the cast aren't following the script. They have a different set of pages. A script that was written backstage, in the shadows, far from the innocent eyes of the audience. They understand the mechanics of the stage, the lighting, the trapdoors. They know that what happens in front of the curtain is a performance, and that the real story is written by those who control what the audience perceives. Niccolò Machiavelli was not a villain. He was the first person to have the audacity to steal a copy of that secret script, step out of the theater, and publish it for the entire world to see. He was not interested in the beautiful lies of the play. He was interested in the brutal truth of the machinery backstage. He understood that to navigate the world effectively, you must first stop being a naive actor and start becoming a discerning member of the audience, or better yet, a student of the director. This video is your invitation to step backstage. It is not a lesson in how to be cruel, but a masterclass in how to be clear-eyed. It is about learning the forbidden language that is spoken not in words, but in actions, in silences, in the subtle currents of human desire and fear. It is about learning the dark art of reading people's souls. This knowledge, I must warn you, is a key to a door that cannot be unlocked. Once you step through it, your perception of the world will be permanently altered. The comforting simplicity of the theater of innocence will be lost to you forever. You will see the hidden motives, the carefully concealed fears, and the strategic maneuvering behind every social interaction. You will, in essence, become dangerously smart. And many people, you will find, do not like being seen so clearly. So, you have chosen to break the contract. You have accepted the invitation to step backstage and see the world as it is. But where does this journey begin? It does not begin with a grand action. It does not begin with a clever word. It begins with the most difficult and most powerful discipline of all: silence. Not the empty silence of a vacant mind, but the active, predatory silence of a hunter. Before you can understand others, you must first learn to silence yourself. Think about how you operate in a normal conversation. Are you truly listening, or are you merely waiting for your turn to speak? Your mind is a noisy place. It is filled with the constant chatter of your own ego, your own desires, your own arguments. You are so busy formulating your rebuttal, crafting your next witty remark, or judging what is being said, that you miss everything of importance. You hear the words but you miss the music. You miss the subtle melody of fear, the jarring rhythm of deception, the quiet harmony of truth. The first step in the dark art of reading souls is to consciously turn down the volume of your own inner monologue. This is the first and greatest act of discipline. In your next conversation, try this. Do not have a goal. Do not try to win the argument, do not try to impress, do not try to be liked. Your only goal is to observe. To become a blank screen upon which the other person projects their entire inner world. When you achieve this state of active silence, something extraordinary begins to happen. The world, which once seemed like a cacophony of random noise, starts to resolve into a symphony of clear, predictable patterns. You stop hearing what people are saying and you start hearing what they are betraying. You listen to a colleague passionately argue for a certain project, but you hear the tremor of fear in their voice, the fear that their own job will become irrelevant if the project is not approved. You watch a friend laugh off a joke at their expense, but you see the micro-expression of deep hurt that flashes across their face for a fraction of a second. You listen to a leader give a speech about shared sacrifice, but you notice their eyes constantly darting to the most powerful people in the room, seeking their approval, not the approval of the crowd. This is where the metamorphosis begins. You are no longer just an observer. You are becoming a decoder. You realize that a person's silences are often more informative than their speeches. The topics they studiously avoid are the keys to the locked rooms of their psyche. Their emotional outbursts are not random acts of passion. They are cracks in their armor, revealing the vulnerable flesh of their deepest insecurities. You learn to offer people silence, and you watch, fascinated, as their discomfort compels them to fill that silence with confessions they never intended to make. You let their own emotions write their story for you. And as you gather this data discreetly and completely, your mind begins a fundamental shift. You stop seeing people for who they pretend to be. You begin to see them as a collection of forces, utilities, fragilities, influences, and risks. This is the point of no return. It is not the moment you become smarter. It is the moment you cease to be naive. You realize that truth is a secondary currency in the human economy. The primary currency is belief. You understand that trust is not a moral virtue but a strategic tool. You see with a terrifying clarity that most people are lying not just to you but more profoundly to themselves. And you begin to grasp the most dangerous idea of all. If you can understand their illusions, you can control their reality. This is the birth of the tactical mind. Your emotions, which once drove your reactions, become your analytical instruments. Another person's anger is no longer a personal attack. It is data about their insecurities. Another person's flattery is no longer a compliment. It is data about their objectives. You have disconnected from the emotional chaos, and in doing so, you have positioned yourself above it. In this silent state of observation, you have, without saying a single word, inverted the power dynamic. The person speaking, emoting, and revealing is the one giving away information and power. You, the silent observer, are the one accumulating it. They think you are quiet, perhaps harmless, maybe even a little slow. They do not realize that in their presence, you have become a student of their soul. They do not know that while they are playing their part on stage, you are reading the director's hidden notes. And they will never know what you have become, until it is far, far too late. So, you have learned to be silent. You have become an observer, a decoder of the human theater. You have accumulated a vast secret library of data on the fears, desires, and insecurities of those around you. This perception alone makes you formidable. But perception without action is merely a private, intellectual exercise. It is a locked library. Power is not in the knowing, it is in the using. The darkly intelligent mind understands that the most powerful actions in the human world are not physical. They are verbal. But they do not use words in the way that ordinary people do. The naive person uses words like a blunt instrument, to state their case, to argue, to express their feelings. They use words to communicate their own reality. The master of dark intelligence is different. They are a psychological alchemist. They understand that words are not blunt instruments. They are primal elements. They are acids, solvents, and catalysts that can be mixed with precision to dissolve another person's reality and construct a new one in its place. Their goal is not to communicate but to transmute. Let us examine the three core instruments in this dark laboratory of language. First, is the art of the question as a scalpel. The naive person makes statements. The darkly intelligent person asks questions. But these are not simple questions born of curiosity. They are surgical instruments designed to bypass the conscious mind and cut directly into the soft tissue of the psyche. They master the art of the open-ended, diagnostic question. While others are debating the what, they are focused on the why. A colleague insists on a flawed plan. Instead of attacking the plan, that will never work, you ask a question that probes the emotion behind it. What is the biggest concern you have if we don't follow this plan? This question forces them to reveal the fear that is driving their logic. Fear of failure, fear of looking incompetent, fear of change. Once you understand the fear, you don't need to defeat their argument. You only need to address their fear. They use the hypothetical question to seed doubt without creating resistance. Instead of saying, your idea is weak, you create a separate, hypothetical reality. It's an interesting approach. Out of curiosity, what would we do if a competitor suddenly launched a similar product at half the price? How would this strategy hold up then? You have not attacked them. You have invited them into a game of strategic thinking. But in doing so, you have forced them to confront the fatal flaw in their own logic. They will walk away from the conversation believing they discovered the weakness, not that you pointed it out. Second, is the weaponization of silence as pressure. In part 2 you learn to use silence to observe. Now you will learn to use it to interrogate. Silence is a vacuum and the human psyche abhors a vacuum. Most people are terrified of it. They will rush to fill it with noise, explanations, justifications, and apologies. This is a tool of immense power. Someone makes a statement that you know to be a lie or an exaggeration. The naive response is to immediately challenge it, starting an argument you may not win. The master of dark intelligence does something far more effective. They simply hold their gaze for a moment longer than is comfortable. They let the silence hang in the air, heavy and expectant. In that silence, the other person's mind begins to self-destruct. They think, do they know I'm lying? Do they have proof? Why aren't they saying anything? Their composure crumbles. They begin to over-explain, to add unnecessary details to their story, to backtrack, to qualify their statements. They will, more often than not, expose their own deception without you ever having to make an accusation. You did not attack them. You simply created the conditions for them to defeat themselves. This quiet, unnerving stillness feels like absolute power, because it is the stillness of a judge who has already reached a verdict and is simply waiting for the confession. Third, is the precise application of praise as a lever. The naive person gives praise freely to be kind. The darkly intelligent person understands that praise is one of the most powerful levers for psychological manipulation, because it speaks directly to the deepest hunger of the human ego, the need for validation. The key is that this praise is never random. It is always targeted. Through your silent observation, you have already identified a person's core point of pride, which is almost always linked to their deepest insecurity. The arrogant manager is insecure about his intelligence. The micromanager is insecure about his control. The social butterfly is insecure about being disliked. You apply the lever with surgical precision. Just before you make your move, you validate their core identity. To the arrogant manager, John, your strategic vision on these things is always on another level, which is why I'm trying to understand how this small detail fits into the bigger picture. You have now made it impossible for him to be defensive, because to do so would be to betray the very intelligence you just praised. To the micromanager, the level of detail and control you have over this project is incredible. To help you maintain that control, could you clarify what you need from my end on this one specific point? You are using their own ego as a tool to lower their defenses and guide them exactly where you want them to go. You have transformed their greatest psychological weakness into your greatest strategic asset. These are not tricks. They are the application of a deeper understanding. The darkly intelligent mind is no longer a participant in the conversation. They are the architect of it. They are not playing the game, they are shaping the psychological reality in which the game is played. They have understood the ultimate lesson of this dark art. You do not need to raise your voice when you can subtly and silently rewrite the thoughts in the minds of others. You have learned to observe. You have been handed the alchemical tools of language. But the most profound change is not in what you do or what you say. It is in what you become. There is a tipping point in this journey, a quiet moment of internal realignment where the old you begins to die, and something new, cold, and powerful begins to take its place. This is the metamorphosis. It is the moment you stop being an emotional participant in the human theater and become a tactical strategist. To understand this shift, you must first understand the operating system of the naive mind. The naive mind sees the world through a simple, moralistic lens. It sorts the world into clean binaries, good people and bad people, friends and enemies, right and wrong. It operates on the assumption that intentions matter most, that sincerity is a reliable currency, and that loyalty is an unbreakable bond. This worldview is comforting. It is simple. And it is a lie that will keep you perpetually weak. The metamorphosis begins when this binary operating system crashes. Your mind, now armed with ruthless observation, stops categorizing people as good or bad. That framework is a nursery school fable. Instead, you begin to see every individual, including yourself, through a new, brutally realistic trinity. Interests, fears, and capabilities. That is all. You no longer ask, is this person good? You ask, what are their true interests, not the ones they state but the ones their actions reveal? You no longer ask, are they my friend? You ask, what are they terrified of losing and how does that fear dictate their behavior? You no longer listen to their boasts or titles. You ask, what are their actual demonstrated capabilities? When you make this shift, the emotional fog of the world lifts, revealing the cold, hard mechanics of human interaction. It is like a surgeon learning to see a patient not as a person with a story, but as a complex system of flesh, bone, and fluid. This perspective feels cold, even cruel at first, This is the feeling of your innocence dying. It is a necessary death. This new, tactical mind brings with it profound changes in your behavior. First, you become unreadable. The naive person is an open book. Their emotions are their masters. They react. They get angry, they get defensive, they get excited. Their inner state is broadcast for all to see. But you have learned to disconnect your inner state from your outer expression. You have learned that emotion is not something to be acted upon, but something to be analyzed, in others and in yourself. Your calmness in a crisis, your silence in the face of provocation, it makes you a black box to those around you. They project their own fears and assumptions onto your stillness, and in doing so, they reveal everything about themselves and nothing about you. People are terrified of what they cannot predict or understand. And you have become a beautiful, unnerving enigma. Second, you reevaluate all relationships. The naive mind believes in unconditional loyalty. The tactical mind understands that loyalty is a contract of mutually aligned interests. It is a temporary alliance, not a sacred vow. You begin to see your relationships, at work, in your social life, even in romance, as strategic partnerships. You ask not just, do I like this person? But, does this alliance serve my long-term objectives? This does not mean you cannot feel affection or love. It means you understand that affection and love exist within a larger framework of power and interest. You learn to be a loyal ally to those who are useful and whose interests align with yours, and to be ruthlessly indifferent to those who are not. Third, you master the art of the mask. The naive person believes they have one authentic face. The tactical person knows that authenticity is a luxury one can rarely afford. They understand that every social situation is a different stage that requires a different performance. They develop a wardrobe of personas. You are not lying, you are adapting. You present the face that the situation demands to achieve the desired outcome. You are the humble listener to the arrogant egoist. You are the decisive leader to the frightened team. You are the charming friend to the suspicious rival. You are never yourself. You are always precisely who you need to be. This is the phase Machiavelli most admired. The silent, internal metamorphosis, where a person stops trying to fit into a flawed world and begins to quietly reshape the world to fit their own design. The most beautiful part is that no one will see it happening. They will still see the quiet, harmless observer from the beginning. They won't realize they are already caught in a web you have been weaving for months, perhaps years. You no longer need to chase power. You have become the center of gravity. That is what it means to be dangerously smart. Not in a flash of genius, but in the long, silent, patient construction of a mind that has transcended the childish game of good and evil and embraced the adult reality of cause and effect. And so, the metamorphosis is complete. The naive actor has died and the tactical strategist has been born. You have learned to be silent, to observe, to see the hidden machinery of fear and desire that operates beneath the pleasantries of the social theater. You can read the silent language of power. You can shape conversations with a single, well-placed question. You are no longer a pawn in the game. You are becoming a player. You are powerful. And you are also, perhaps for the first time in your life, truly alone. This is the part of the journey that the shallow gurus of power and success never speak about. This is the cost of clarity. This is the dark truth at the heart of the dark art. To see the world with Machiavellian eyes is a profound and often painful burden. The world, which once seemed filled with a certain kind of flawed magic, now reveals itself to you as a cold, predictable mechanism. You have opened the back of a beautiful antique watch, and now all you can see are the grinding, impersonal gears. The intricate dance of human interaction no longer looks like a dance. It looks like the push and pull of levers, the firing of circuits, the predictable movements of a complex but ultimately soulless machine. This disillusionment is the first price you pay. The world has lost its poetry. It has become prose. This new sight fundamentally changes your relationship with others. You are at a party listening to a friend tell a story. The old you would have been lost in the narrative, feeling their joy, their sadness. The new you is different. You are listening, yes, but you are also analyzing. You are cataloging the subtle exaggerations they use to make themselves the hero. You are noting the details they omit to hide their own culpability. You are identifying the emotional needs that their story is designed to satisfy. You see the performance. And because you see the performance, you can never again lose yourself in the play. This creates a chasm. A subtle but impassable distance between you and everyone else. You are like a visitor from another world, a sociologist studying a foreign tribe. You understand their rituals, their beliefs, their fears better than they do themselves. But you can never truly belong to them again. You have traded the warm, comforting blindness of belonging for the cold, lonely clarity of understanding. And this is where the greatest danger of this knowledge lies. This is the final test that separates the master strategist from the bitter cynic. When you see weakness everywhere, when you see the self-interest behind every act of kindness, when you see the fear behind every display of strength, it is easy to fall into a deep and corrosive contempt for humanity. It is easy to conclude that the world is nothing but a cesspool of fear, greed, and manipulation, and that all people are merely puppets of their basest desires. This cynicism is a prison. It is the final, most subtle trap of the darkly intelligent mind. It offers the illusion of ultimate wisdom, but it is, in fact, a form of intellectual suicide. It is the act of a mind that has become so powerful in its analysis that it has forgotten how to connect. It is a mind that has won the game, only to find itself alone on the chessboard with no one left to play against. So you are clear-eyed. You are strategic. You are powerful. But you are also isolated, disillusioned, and standing on the precipice of a bitter and total cynicism. Is this the end of the journey? Is this hollow, lonely victory the only prize for your painful transformation? Machiavelli himself was accused for 5 centuries of being a teacher of evil, a whisperer of cynical truths that corrode the soul. But perhaps he was teaching something else entirely. Perhaps the recognition of universal weakness is not the final destination, but the necessary starting point for a higher form of wisdom. A wisdom that allows one to be both clear-eyed and compassionate, strategic and yet, in its own way, ethical. So, you stand on the precipice, looking down into the abyss of cynicism. You have been given the gift of sight, but it feels like a curse. You see the world as a cold, mechanical game, and the human heart as a predictable engine of fear and self-interest. The magic is gone. The innocence is lost. And you are utterly alone in your clarity. Is this the final destination? Is this cold, desolate landscape the only reward for your journey into the dark art of reading souls? For many it is. They become bitter, perpetually disappointed observers, trapped in an ivory tower of their own superior perception, looking down with contempt upon the sheep below. They win the intellectual battle but lose the human war. But this is not the path Machiavelli intended. The popular caricature of Machiavelli is that of a teacher of tyrants, a whisperer of evil. This is a profound misunderstanding. Machiavelli's work was not a guidebook for the powerful on how to become more powerful. It was a survival manual for the clear-eyed on how to exist in a world that is governed by the weak, the fearful, and the manipulative. He gave you the enemy's playbook not so you could become them, but so you could never be defeated by them. The ultimate goal of this knowledge is not to curdle into cynicism. It is to sublimate into a higher form of wisdom. A strategic wisdom that is built upon 2 pillars. The first pillar is impenetrable self-protection. Your newfound sight is your ultimate shield. Where you were once vulnerable, you are now a fortress. The approval seeker's flattery can no longer manipulate you, because you see the desperation for validation behind the compliment. The aggressor's intimidation can no longer frighten you, because you see the terrified, cornered animal behind the roar. The bureaucrat's endless process can no longer frustrate you, because you see the paralyzing fear of responsibility that drives the inaction. You can now navigate the social world with a kind of serene immunity. Their games become transparent to you. Their attempts at emotional manipulation are like clumsy attacks against a fortress with perfect vision. You see the arrow being fired long before it reaches your walls. This protection gives you a profound sense of calm. You are no longer a reactive victim of the emotional storms of others. You are the calm, quiet center around which the chaos swirls. The second pillar is a more difficult art, strategic compassion. This is what separates the master from the cynic. The cynic uses their knowledge of weakness to despise others. The master uses their knowledge of weakness to understand them, and in understanding, to influence them on a level they themselves cannot comprehend. True compassion is not the naive sympathy of the person who believes every story they are told. That is a form of weakness. True, strategic compassion is understanding another's deepest fears and insecurities so profoundly that you can speak directly to that hidden, wounded part of them, bypassing their ego, their aggression, and their masks. When you are faced with an arrogant and difficult colleague, the naive person argues with their arrogance. The master of dark intelligence recognizes the deep insecurity that fuels the arrogance and speaks to that instead. I can see how much pressure you're under to make this succeed. My only goal here is to support that success. You are not being submissive. You are performing a brilliant act of psychological jujitsu. You have refused to fight the mask and have instead disarmed the frightened person behind it. This is a level of influence that is invisible, profound, and far more effective than any direct confrontation. It is the art of leading people by healing their hidden wounds. But the final and most crucial turn of the screw in this entire journey is this. All of this, learning to see the weakness in others, learning to navigate their fears and desires, has merely been a training exercise. It has been a preparatory stage for the real war. The true purpose of the Machiavellian lens is to finally and ruthlessly turn it upon yourself. You have learned to spot the weakness of indecision in your boss. Now find it in yourself. You have learned to see the weakness of approval seeking in your friends. Now find it in yourself. You have learned to detect the weakness of predictability in your rivals. Now find it in your own routines, your own thinking, your own life. The dark art of reading souls is not ultimately for the purpose of controlling others. It is for the purpose of achieving the only form of control that truly matters: self-mastery. To see your own fears with cold clarity, to understand your own hidden motivations, to recognize the masks you wear for yourself. This is the final, terrifying, and liberating step. Because the person who has seen their own weaknesses, confronted them, and bent them to their will, has no weaknesses left for others to exploit. They become a true sovereign. They move through the world with a power that does not need to announce itself. This is the ultimate lesson. The journey does not end with you seeing weakness everywhere in the world. It ends with you declaring war on the weakness within yourself. For the person who has conquered their own inner kingdom has no need to rule the world outside.